Drabu, on the point you were making, and apologies for that, so please do carry on.
No, the point I was making is that tribunals, whether they be mediation, arbitration, or settling other disputes, they have to behave in an informal manner. The surroundings have got to be such that they do not make users feel intimidated. Surroundings have got to be friendly, user-friendly. The language has got to be user-friendly, right? Unfortunately, in this particular instance, the filming that was done demonstrated that the judge was sitting up in the sky and the users were sitting down at the bottom, which is not conducive to dispensing justice in this country. In those matters,
it can be intimidating.
It is always intimidating. I mean, you can imagine a sister or a wife going there and seeking redress. She's put off straight away that it is somebody who is really huge and powerful. I don't think that should happen.
And say even in the family courts, the newer family courts in the last 30 years have a table. The judge sits at the same level as us, and we never feel they're above us. It's very important. Remember the fear that these women have faced and overcome to come to an imam and a Sharia council. They just want to be heard.
Yeah, so it's very important to have a conducive environment for that. Before I come back to you, Imam Raza, I'm going to take a couple of callers, if that's okay. I believe a couple of sisters are waiting, so let's take our first call. Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Hi, walaikum salam. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're on air.
Hi. Just a quick comment. Firstly, I think your caller, Ali, who works in media, I think his comment was a bit unfair for him to say that Asian women don't actually help themselves or bring it upon themselves, if that's what he said. Because if you have to understand, it's like there's so many cases of where, say, Asian women who face themselves in this situation haven't been paid their mahar. So it's only natural that they're going to sort of speak out about it. I mean, there's many, many cases where they're fighting to get their mahar, which is, you know, their entitlement. So for him to make that comment was really unfair, and he needs to do...
Would you also say, sister, that it's also perhaps unfair to bring a culture that's foreign? Now, maybe an Asian culture is okay for someone who actually was, you know, born, brought up in an Asian country. So that's the culture that they adhere to. If someone's born in this country, surely they will have a British culture rather than an Asian culture.
Yeah, it's not... At the end of the day, it's not to do with your culture, is it? It's to do with what's your right. You know, if a woman's right is her mahar, then that should never be denied from her.
Absolutely.
And just speaking from personal experience, when I've had to contact the Sharia Council, you have to understand that you're faced in a sort of, you know, traumatic situation as it is anyway, because, you know, I mean, it's not like divorce isn't like a everyday normal thing. So when you do contact someone like the Sharia Council, you know, there isn't any sort of sympathy, any sort of, like no sympathy, no emotion, nothing. You're just another caller, it's just another case. That's the kind of attitude that I faced. And to be honest, when that program was shown on Panorama on BBC One, I was actually pleased that, you know, they were being exposed like that. And that's based on my personal experience. Other people might have had a better experience, but every time, I remember when I used to phone the Sharia Council, it was like, well, we can't have this information, you need to pay £50. Do you know what I mean? And so when you're like in a situation where, say, for example, you're not working and £50 is a lot of money for you, it's kind of wrong for them to sort of ask that, or like that's...
Why is it wrong, sister, to ask for money for the services? Because most services that you would go for, you have to pay for.
No, that's fine. It's not the service. I mean, I remember I was asking for basic information, and it's like, well, we can't give that information over the phone. You have to come in, and to come in, you have to make a £50 appointment. Do you know what I mean? It was that kind of attitude. And when you're sort of like explaining to them, like, you know, it's a distressful situation, and, you know, you're faced with all these difficulties, you do sort of, there should be some sort of other options or something to help. But the attitude that I got from them was, you know, one of like, oh, you know, you're just...
It's very cold. It's very cold. Okay, thank you, sister,
thank you.
For your views. Okay, let's go to our next caller, who's also another sister calling from London. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
You're on air. Your views, please, sister.
Right, well, I've been listening. I haven't listened to the whole program, to be honest, but I did see the Panorama program. And I've been listening to a couple of your sisters. I went to the Sharia Council about 14 years ago. And I came out of a really horrible marriage. And initially, I was born and brought up in this country, but my ex came from Pakistan.
Right.
And when I went down the civil route, he completely said, well, you know, we didn't get married here, we had a nikah, so you need a talaq and I'm not giving you one.
Okay.
So I went to the Sharia Council, and the help and support that I got from there, there is no way I could have got through it without that.
Okay.
My experience was fantastic.
Okay.
And when I got the khula, which took me about 6 months, Sheikh Saheb did try mediation, but knowing that it was from an abusive marriage, he made sure he was literally on the other side of the door.
Right, right.
At the moment voices were raised, they walked in, they kept my ex there until I left the building.
Okay.
And that's the sort of support that I got. Now, we're women, even on the Panorama program, but some sisters have said today that we had to pay a fee. After that, I had to go through the civil courts, and I spent thousands. I had 3 very young children. I wasn't entitled to legal aid, and I spent thousands. Now, nobody has a problem paying thousands to a civil court. But to pay £250, which I had to pay at the time, was nothing for the service that I got. And I was really appalled when I saw the program, because the fact that they only show small clips, yes, I was asked about abuse. I was asked, you know, how hard did he hit you? Did he bruise you? You know, you've got to go. But then so did the civil courts.
Yeah, yeah.
And because I didn't go to the police, the civil courts weren't really that interested.
Okay.
With regards to where Sheikh Saheb sits, I had to go to court. It took me 2.5 years to get a civil divorce after my khula. And when I had to go to court 3 times, the judge was sitting upright on top of, you know, his bench or what have you. Nobody has a problem with that. But why, with, you know, the courts in this land, we live in this land, so we have to abide by the law. But if we want something for our own faith, then there is a bit of give and take. You know, they've only been around for the last 30, 40 years, whereas the judiciary here has been around for hundreds of years.
Yeah, yeah.
And to be honest, women only got their rights in this country going back several decades ago.
Okay, thank you, sister, for your views. Let's take one more call and I'll come back to my panel. Sister Mamouna from Newcastle. Assalamu alaikum.
Hi, assalamu alaikum. I hope everyone's doing well today. I just have a couple of comments to make.
Sure.
I think mostly our issue with the whole Sharia Council is that we have so much uncertainty when it comes to Islamic marriages in this country. We only have a small amount of mosques that are actually institutions in which a religious marriage is registered, unlike the Jewish Beth-Din courts where it's done automatically.
Right.
So I think the main problem is that Sharia has given women these rights, but they can't enforce them because we haven't given ourselves the ability to actually register our marriages. Like Aina Khan was saying before, she has to use civil law to enforce a contract. Whereas I know a lot of Imams are actually encouraging people that when they have the nikah done, they do it using a contract, so that actually when the time comes, if something happens, you can enforce this contract and things can be done properly.
Yeah,
and I think that, I don't know if there's a concerted effort going on in the Muslim community, but I think we really need to have a real big push for more mosques to make themselves institutions that can actually automatically register marriages, because it makes so many issues easier for sisters.
Okay, thank you. That's a very good point. Yeah, Imam Shahid Raza, if I can ask you just to comment on that point. Is this something that MINAB can push and will push?
Certainly, MINAB will consult the community, the Imams and mosques, and we will try to deal with this particular issue. MINAB has been established for that very purpose. So I very much hope that...
But, you know, just like Aina mentioned and the caller mentioned there, it's so important that, you know, when the nikah is done, the ceremony is done, that there is a contract and it's signed and it's registered and it's looked after by an institution. It just makes everything easier, more professional.
Yeah.
I mean, why? There's no need for consultation on this. This should happen.
Even within the existing system of Islamic marriages, I think that Aina would agree with it, that there is a room of claiming mahr under the English law, because a contract in English law is an agreement signed, witnessed. So these two elements are always there in all Islamic marriages, whether they are considered equal to civil marriages or not. The main thing is that how to educate our sisters that they can go through the existing legal system in this country and they will be able to recover the outstanding amount of mahr.
Well, this issue of raising awareness, Abdullah Hasan, if I can ask you, I recently heard about an initiative called Imams Against Domestic Violence. To be honest, it's only recently I heard a khutbah at East London Mosque that kind of dealt with domestic violence. And you don't really hear about many mosques, masajids, talking about this issue. Do you think this issue is actually discussed? You know, the rights that the sisters have, the women have in Islam, in marriage, are they discussed anywhere, do you think?
I mean, in terms of the rights of the husband and wife, any scholar, imam would educate or should educate the community on these basic requirements of Islamic marriage. I think a lot of imams and scholars do that. What we found at Nour since the inception is that when it comes to domestic abuse, a lot of imams, unfortunately, in our research and findings, they don't really appreciate nor understand the severity of and the complexity of domestic abuse within the Muslim community. Hence, sometimes they just ignore it. So when a client, when a woman or a sister comes and approaches them, they just, want to put it under the carpet and say that, go back to your husband and be patient and deal with it, and hopefully with time is a healer and everything will be rectified. So I think imams do need to educate themselves about the complexities of domestic abuse. That domestic abuse is not just a physical beating that the husband or the wife can incur, but domestic abuse is about mental, psychological, aggressive behavior towards the spouse. So since we've started the organization Nour, we've tried to highlight and educate our imams. So we started to every year to do a khutbah drive, where we have contacted a number of masajid within London, within the UK, to deliver the khutbah in 1 week about domestic abuse, and we've produced our own khutbah in English and other languages. So we've tried to, but unfortunately, because of the complexities of the Muslim community within the UK, and different organizations and groups and different divisions
that's a problem that will never probably go away.
Just talk about that issue a little bit. My heart broke when I heard in the Panorama program there was filming that showed the attitude is still completely prevalent in our society, where you say to the woman, did you put your makeup on? Did you greet him properly dressed? Was the house clean? Was the cooking done? Because it was your fault that you got hit. What they are not understanding is the most perfect wives get hit. It isn't about being a perfect wife. It's about control and power. And we have to redress that, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam never lifted his hand to anybody. Why can't we look at his example? Why can't we now be those Muslims, the early Muslims, what they looked for? We look at our culture as more important than our deen. And because in an Asian and African culture, Arab culture, it's fine to be male-dominated, and you do it with a fist, if nothing else. It's fine to import that here. It's not fine. We have to have zero tolerance.
And I think this is the kind of tension at the moment, isn't it? That the cultural baggage that has come over is at odds with what children are growing up with,
and the
learning.
worst thing is, it's not an age issue. People think it's the older generation, it'll be fine. My father, my uncles, God forbid, never touched their wives. But the younger generation, it's completely like an epidemic. And even the young women are hitting their men. So it's not just one way.
Yeah, and I don't think we can stereotype, and we shouldn't stereotype on what are the causes.
Men get beaten as well. It just has to stop.
One or 2 points. One is a legal point. That is that in Islam, marriage is a contract. It's not a sacrament. It's not a sacrament at all. So it is an actual contract which can be enforced in an English court. Similarly, when people say that under nikah, if you are living under nikah, the marriage is not recognized in England. It is. It is. Yeah. People get entry into UK after having contracted nikah, and people, wife used to be recognized as the wife.
No, but only if it's abroad.
Yes,
it's very important to clarify that.
I agree.
Not a nikah in the UK.
That's absolutely fine. Not here. Yeah. But then on the other hand, as far as enforcement is concerned, when you talk about mahar, when you talk about return of jewelry, that can be enforced by the UK courts without a problem. And the common law principle of having lived together as common law spouse will come into play. Yeah. Now, what the problem with the Sharia councils is that, unfortunately, I have to say this, it has been hijacked by culture-contaminated Sharia.
I like that too.
And
culture-contaminated Sharia.
Absolutely. And it has been hijacked, unfortunately, by male-dominated minds.
Okay, and I think...
Please make it clear, there's no such thing as a common law marriage. Please, would people realize, even if you live together for 20 years, you have no legal rights.
Yeah, it's not marriage.
So we have to be careful.
Yeah, and I need to go to the phones. There are loads of callers waiting, and we are coming to a break. So let me take a couple of callers, and then inshallah we'll carry on after the break. Let's go to the phone lines. I believe a sister's waiting on the phone line. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, sister, can you hear me? Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yes, sister, you're on air. Your views, please.
I'd just like to give some feedback on the very first caller. I completely disagree with his comments. Domestic violence currently is very high in the Bangladeshi and Pakistani community. It may be less physical, domestic, regarding violence, but it's definitely mental and financial. And I would like to also say about Nour, it's a great service, but it has to be more accessible and in every borough.
Okay, thank you, sister.
Also, I did make a few notes because I was just thinking, what else? Because I'm coming across a lot of cases, and that's just because I'm someone who's local in the borough, and women are dealing with it in isolation.
Right. Yeah, thank you, sister.
Recently, Safa Academy has put on a marriage and relationship course, so we need really a lot of this going on by the Muslim community for the Muslim community. I also run parenting courses and I empower women. The sister who was saying about power and control, this is so, she's just hit the now on the head about, this is going on so much in our community, and we really need to grasp it and we need to sort this out.
Thank you. Thank you for your views. I'm going to squeeze in the final call for this part. Sister Nazia is on the phone. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum to everybody on the panel. First of all, I'd just like to say I have had, over the last 3 years, contact with the Islamic Sharia Council, and it's a voluntary organisation. I think there are a lot of people that put time and effort into it, and I don't think it's something we should take for granted. And actually, personally, I'm grateful, even though I've had varied experiences with them, that there is someone I can call on in my hour of need, and I have had hikmah and wisdom from the people I have dealt with. I'd like to just make 2 comments.
Sure.
First of all, is my experience when I actually turned up. After having been granted a civil divorce, I applied for my khula. Now, the first point I'd like to make is a slight procedural, I think, mismatch in terms of what the Islamic Sharia Council does and what a civil divorce does. In order to apply for a khula, you have to actually prove that you are serious about a civil divorce.
Sister, because I've literally got about 20 seconds before I'm coming to the break, and I don't really want to stop you from your 2 points. So if you don't mind, can I ask you to actually just wait on the phone or call us back? Actually, best to wait on the phone because our phone lines are jammed. And then what we'll do is take your views after the break. I'm really sorry about that. Do carry on calling us. Inshallah, we will carry on after the break. Assalamu alaikum.